The courtroom is a battlefield. The lights are blinding, the tension palpable, and every eye is on the woman walking in. Melania Trump, once the First Lady of the United States, poised, elegant, and composed, steps into the room with a determination that could rival the fiercest of warriors. But this battle is different. This isn't about politics, policies, or even her legacy as a First Lady. No, this time it's personal. Her son Barron Trump, the quiet, reserved teenager often shielded from the public eye, has been dragged into the spotlight in a way no child should ever be. The offense: a scathing, unprovoked insult thrown by the hosts of a popular liberal TV talk show, comedians known for their controversial humor, sharp jabs, and often cruel takes on the political elite. The insult, an attack on Barron's character, a comment that went beyond the line of decency, far past the point of harmless satire or political humor. And Melania, she's had enough. As she walks to the front, her steely gaze never wavering, she delivers the words that have left the world buzzing: "I will not stand idly by while they hurt my son." Her lawsuit is a statement, one of defiance and protection. It is not just about defending Barron, it is a declaration that even the most powerful figures cannot hide behind the excuse of free speech when it is used as a weapon to harm. But as the case unfolds, the story only gets darker. The world watches in shock as the media moguls behind the liberal talk show fight back with unexpected aggression, and the line between right and wrong begins to blur. What unfolds in the coming weeks will change the way celebrities, politicians, and the public view the boundaries of speech and the consequences of crossing them. In a legal drama that promises unexpected twists, the stakes could not be higher. A mother fights for the dignity of her child, but at what cost? Is this just the beginning of a larger cultural shift, or will this confrontation leave behind a wake of chaos? Everyone is waiting to see what will happen next. The questions linger in the air. Can Melania truly protect her son's legacy? And in a world where public figures are constantly scrutinized, can anyone truly escape the consequences of their words? The lawsuit filed by Melania Trump against the liberal TV show hosts immediately set the media on fire. The talk show, known for its irreverence and its hosts' unapologetic, often inflammatory humor, was a fixture in late-night programming. But this time, they had crossed a line. The insult, trivializing her son Barron's intelligence and making cruel comments about his appearance, quickly went viral. The hosts, with their quick wit and comedic timing, thought nothing of it until it became clear that Melania Trump was not someone to be underestimated. The first day in court was surreal. The courtroom was packed, not just with reporters, but with a range of spectators eager to witness what many believed would be the spectacle of the year. The talk show hosts, grinning smugly, were seated on one side, while Melania sat across, her demeanor as composed as ever, her gaze steady and unwavering. For a moment, there was a chill in the air as both sides sized each other up. The lead attorney for the TV host stood and began the opening argument. With all the confidence in the world, he argued that their comments were protected under the guise of satire. They were merely joking, he insisted, as part of the tradition of political humor that often poked fun at public figures. "Where do we draw the line?" he asked the court. "If we can't laugh at politicians or their families, then what's left of our freedom of speech?" But Melania's legal team, led by one of the most high-profile defense attorneys in the country, wasn't backing down. "This is not about freedom of speech." The words hit harder than expected. The courtroom fell into a hush, with many beginning to realize just how personal this case truly was. Melania wasn't just fighting for her son's reputation, she was standing up for what she believed was a growing culture of cruelty disguised as humor. "Enough is enough," Melania's lawyer declared, as he turned to the court. "It's time to draw a line in the sand." Over the following weeks, the courtroom drama escalated. Each day, the tension between Melania's legal team and the defense lawyers representing the TV hosts grew more intense. Melania's lawyers called on witnesses, including child psychologists, who explained the lasting emotional impact of such public ridicule on young children, particularly those in the spotlight. They also presented statements from mental health experts who underscored the damage done by cyberbullying and public attacks on children. The courtroom was gripped by the testimony, and it became clear that Melania was not just playing defense, she was on the offensive, trying to reshape the narrative around free speech. Meanwhile, the TV hosts fought back fiercely. They had their own stable of experts, including free speech advocates and prominent comedians, who took the stand to argue that humor, no matter how pointed, had a vital role in society. Humor doesn't always have to be nice, one of the comedians explained. It's about pushing boundaries, questioning authority, and holding the powerful accountable. But Melania's team refuted these claims with precision, arguing that attacking a child was not a critique of power, it was an act of cruelty. One of the most shocking moments in the trial came when Melania herself took the stand. Calm, poised, and dignified as ever, she spoke about the years of public scrutiny she had faced, the countless personal attacks, and how the well-being of her son had always been her top priority. She spoke of Barron not as a political symbol, but as a young boy, one who was still developing, still trying to find his place in the world, far removed from the chaos of his parents' public lives. Her words resonated with the jury and the public alike, as Melania revealed a side of herself few had ever seen. "I will protect my son," she said, her voice unwavering. "I will not allow anyone to strip him of his dignity." But the most unexpected twist came when one of the TV hosts, the most controversial of them all, took the stand. Known for his cutting-edge commentary and aggressive comedy, he seemed to relish the idea of turning the courtroom into another stage. But as the questioning began, his usual bravado began to crack. Under cross-examination, Melania's lawyers revealed a pattern of increasingly mean-spirited jokes about public figures' families, specifically children. They played clips of his past commentary, and the audience could see how the host's brand of humor often crossed the line from satire to cruelty. The moment was a revelation. The hosts had underestimated just how much power Melania had in this fight. Outside the courtroom, the public was divided. Social media exploded, with supporters of Melania's lawsuit applauding her for standing up for her child, while others argued that it was a frivolous case against comedy and free speech. Some saw it as a battle between the political elite and the media, while others viewed it as a much-needed pushback against the growing normalization of online harassment. Regardless of where one stood, the case was turning into a cultural flashpoint, a clash between the right to speak freely and the right to protect one's family from harm. As the days passed, it became increasingly clear that the outcome of this lawsuit would reverberate far beyond the courtroom. As the trial neared its conclusion, it seemed like the stakes couldn't be higher. Melania's resolve had only hardened. She wasn't just defending her son's honor, she was challenging an entire media culture that thrived on divisive, harsh humor. She was taking a stand against the growing trend of public shaming. But with the public's attention now on every move the defense team made, no one could predict how it would all end. Would Melania triumph, setting a new precedent for celebrity children in the public eye? Or would the TV hosts manage to turn the tables, using the case to further fuel their platform of dissent? The world waited with bated breath, knowing that whatever happened, it would change the landscape of celebrity culture and the public's understanding of humor and respect forever. The final days of the trial were a whirlwind of emotion, and the atmosphere in the courtroom was charged with palpable tension. As the closing arguments approached, it became clear that the case had grown far beyond a simple legal dispute. It had transformed into a battle for the very heart of modern media and its responsibilities. The world was watching, and every word spoken carried immense weight. Melania Trump, who had already proven herself to be a poised, calm figure under pressure, now stood at the center of an epic confrontation. In one of the most critical moments of the trial, her legal team presented their final piece of evidence, a series of disturbing social media posts from the hosts of the show, mocking Barron in ways that had crossed not only legal but moral lines. The posts, though subtle at first, escalated quickly from playful jokes to cruel attacks on a child who had done nothing to provoke such animosity. The defense team was caught off guard. They had prepared for a legal argument about free speech but hadn't anticipated this emotional and human argument that pulled the jury and the public directly into the heart of the matter. With this final blow, the courtroom became electric. The jury, made up of both men and women from diverse backgrounds, was visibly moved. Some could be seen shaking their heads in disbelief at the vitriol aimed at Barron. Others were speechless, processing the sheer meanness of the remarks. Melania's lawyer, speaking with calm authority, summed up the core of their argument. This case isn't about politics. It's about humanity. It's about protecting children who can't defend themselves from the cruelty of the media. On the other side, the defense team struggled to regain control of the narrative. The lead attorney for the TV hosts tried desperately to focus on the concept of satire, arguing that comedy was a vital aspect of democratic discourse. But the room was no longer receptive to that argument. The jury had been moved, not by legalities, but by the clear message that mocking a child, any child, was something no amount of humor could justify. The host's aggressive remarks about Barron had, in the eyes of many, exposed a fundamental flaw in their entire approach to comedy. And then came the moment that everyone had been waiting for, the final statement from Melania herself. The room was silent as she took the stand once more, standing before the jury, the world watching through cameras and screens. Her voice was steady, but beneath it lay an unmistakable strength. "I did not ask for my son to be in the public eye," she began, her words measured but powerful. "But I will do everything in my power to protect him. No child should be subjected to this kind of cruelty, no matter their background or who their parents are." Melania's words resonated far beyond the courtroom. As she spoke, it became clear that she was not just speaking for Barron, she was speaking for all children who had ever been made the target of malicious jokes or public ridicule. She was becoming a symbol of something larger, the fight for respect, dignity, and the right to protect one's family from harm. However, just when it seemed like Melania had secured the moral high ground, the defense unleashed a final shockwave. They introduced a piece of evidence that had the power to change everything: a leaked audio clip from an off-record conversation between Melania and her legal team. In it, she was heard discussing the personal vendetta she held against the hosts, referencing their past attacks on her family. The defense argued that this proved Melania's motives weren't purely about protecting Barron, but were driven by revenge. The revelation sent shockwaves through the courtroom. The jury was stunned, and even Melania's legal team seemed rattled. Had Melania's personal animus been exposed? Had she been too emotionally involved in the case to maintain the objectivity required to win? The courtroom erupted in chaos as the defense team pounced on the opportunity. They painted her as a woman unable to separate her personal feelings from the case, trying to portray her actions as more of a vendetta than a noble attempt to protect her son. The media seized on the twist, with headlines immediately questioning Melania's true motivations. The narrative quickly shifted from one of heroic motherly defense to one of a calculated, emotionally driven attack. For a moment, it seemed like the case might slip away from Melania's grasp. Her legal team worked feverishly to discredit the leaked audio, claiming it was taken out of context and that the conversation had been private, with no bearing on the public nature of the trial. But doubt had been cast, and the public was now divided. Some viewed Melania's actions as vindictive, while others believed she was simply a mother who had reached her breaking point. In the final moments of the trial, the jury deliberated, and the tension was unbearable. The world seemed to hold its breath. Would Melania win, setting the precedent for how the media treats public figures' families? Or would the talk show hosts be vindicated, leaving Melania with nothing but the bitter taste of public humiliation? As the jury returned to announce its verdict, the atmosphere in the courtroom was suffocating. The stakes could not have been higher. Everyone waited to see how the scales of justice would tip. And then, in a moment that shocked the world, the jury returned a verdict in Melania Trump's favor. The hosts were found liable for defamation, and the court ruled that their comments about Barron Trump were not protected under the First Amendment's protections of free speech. The ruling sent shockwaves through the media landscape, changing the way many would approach political satire in the future. The hosts, once seen as untouchable figures in the media, were now facing the consequences of their actions. For Melania, the victory was not just legal, it was deeply personal. She had not only defended her son, but she had also drawn a line in the sand, challenging the cultural normalization of cruelty in media. The message was loud and clear: there are limits to what can be said in the name of comedy, and children, especially those who cannot defend themselves, deserve protection. The public's reaction was divided, but one thing was undeniable: Melania had made her point. The final chapter of this legal saga had been written, but its echoes would be felt for years to come, reshaping the conversation about what is acceptable in the realm of public discourse and how far the media can go in the name of humor. As Melania left the courtroom, her expression was one of quiet triumph, knowing that the fight had been worth it not just for her family, but for every child who might one day be caught in the crosshairs of a joke. The courtroom doors closed behind Melania Trump as she emerged victorious, her figure radiating a quiet yet undeniable strength. She had won the case not just for Barron, but for every parent who has ever had to watch their child endure ridicule at the hands of a callous media. The ruling sent ripples through the public, sparking debates, drawing sharp lines between those who felt the victory was a long-needed stance for dignity, and those who feared the consequences of limiting free speech. But regardless of where one stood, there was no denying the emotional weight of the trial. Melania had defended more than just a name. She had defended the sacred bond between a mother and her child, a bond that no public opinion or cynical joke could touch. As Melania walked away from the courthouse that day, she carried with her not just the legal victory, but a message that transcended the courtroom. Her decision to take action had been a statement to the world that love, when it is fierce and true, has the power to challenge and transform. She had shown that no matter how powerful the adversaries or how ingrained a toxic culture may be, there are always those willing to stand up for what is right. Melania Trump's victory wasn't just about silencing a group of television hosts, it was a wake-up call to anyone who had ever felt powerless in the face of overwhelming forces. The story of Melania Trump's lawsuit transcended its political overtones. It spoke to the broader issue of empathy, kindness, and the importance of standing up for those who cannot stand for themselves. It was a stark reminder that while the world often celebrates power, success, and wealth, it is the simple acts of humanity, the courage to protect, the willingness to act with dignity that ultimately define us. In the face of mockery and insult, Melania responded not with anger or retaliation, but with grace and clarity. Her actions spoke louder than any courtroom victory ever could, leaving a trail of inspiration for those who followed. In the weeks that followed, the media landscape shifted. Talk shows began to tread more carefully with their jokes, and the public's appetite for sharp-edged humor began to fade, replaced by a growing awareness of the consequences of words. The court case had become more than just a legal matter, it was a cultural turning point, reminding everyone that respect and decency should be the foundation of any conversation, whether in the spotlight or behind closed doors. But even as the dust settled and the legal battles came to a close, the message of the case continued to resonate. In the months that followed, Melania became a symbol of empowerment, especially for parents everywhere who had ever struggled to protect their children from a world that sometimes seemed too harsh, too cruel. She had shown the power of taking a stand, the strength in choosing the path of dignity, and the profound impact one person can have when they decide to make a difference. The victory also resonated deeply within the wider conversation about the role of media in our lives. As a society, we were forced to ask ourselves, how far should the freedom of speech go when it impacts the most vulnerable among us? What responsibility do we, as a collective society, have to ensure that decency and kindness aren't left behind in the pursuit of entertainment? Melania's case had sparked a conversation that went beyond the courtroom, a conversation that would continue long after the final gavel fell. And perhaps, most importantly, Melania's story serves as a powerful reminder that we, as individuals, hold the power to shape the world around us. In a time where it often feels like the loudest voices are the most powerful, her quiet strength and steadfast determination prove that one person's resolve can spark a wave of change. Melania didn't back down. She stood firm, not because it was easy, but because it was right. Her story serves as a rallying cry for anyone who has ever been made to feel insignificant in the face of larger systems or structures. It's a message to all who feel silenced, that their voice matters, that their actions have power. As the years go on, the name Melania Trump will be remembered for many things, but in this case, she will be remembered as a mother who stepped into the ring not for herself, but for the child she loved. Her courage, her strength, and her unwavering commitment to what was right continue to inspire countless others to fight for their families, their values, and their dignity. And in the end, that is the legacy she leaves behind, the legacy of a mother who refused to let the world define her son, and a reminder to all of us that we, too, have the power to define our own story. The story of Melania Trump's legal victory is a call to action for us all. It urges us to examine the ways in which we allow cruelty to permeate our world and challenges us to stand up for those who cannot fight for themselves. It is a message of hope, reminding us that when we stand together, when we act with integrity, we can shape a world that values compassion, respect, and empathy. Let us take that message forward into our own lives, drawing inspiration from Melania's example, and knowing that no matter how difficult the fight, there is always room for kindness, dignity, and the courage to protect those we love.